Now that I have your attention, there's something you all need to know.
My father never asked for applause. He just built things, quietly. A software company, a reputation, a home big enough for people who didn't deserve to walk through the door. And when everything he built started to crack, when the walls came down and the numbers went red, every single one of those people disappeared. Not slowly, not reluctantly, overnight. This is the story of what came next.
My name is Marcus. I grew up in a mansion in New York. Not because I asked for it. That's just the world I was born into. My father was a millionaire, a quiet, careful man who built a successful software company from the ground up, and who made a habit of helping people who didn't always deserve it. Relatives showed up constantly. You know the type. They came with wide smiles and empty pockets, and my father filled those pockets every time. Jobs at the company, cash when someone's rent was late, connections when someone's kid needed an internship. He gave without keeping score.
I watched all of it growing up, and I made a decision early. I was not going to be someone who coasted on another man's work, not even my father's. I believed in my own hands, my own hours, my own name. I loved my father, but I wanted to earn my place. I was in the middle of my final exams for my software engineering degree when the call came. I still remember sitting in that exam hall, pencil in hand, thinking about nothing except the paper in front of me. And then the world outside that room was quietly falling apart. Mistakes had been made inside the company, critical ones, the kind that don't happen by accident. Confidential data, the kind that took years to build, had been leaked. Not by a stranger, not by a competitor.
By someone close. The losses hit fast and hard. The company buckled. Then it collapsed entirely. Bankruptcy. My father took it badly. Not in a dramatic way. He wasn't that kind of man. He just went quiet. And then his heart started failing. I remember standing in a hospital corridor thinking, I have two things to save, and I don't know if I can save either one. The company was in ruins. My father was lying in a hospital bed, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. I chose him first. Here is what I learned during those weeks. When a man is rich, his phone never stops ringing. When a man loses everything, you can hear his house breathe. Our relatives, the same ones who showed up for every dinner, every holiday, every favor, went silent. No calls, no visits, no offers to help, nothing. Some of them had worked in my father's company. Some of them had eaten at his table for years. And when the table was gone, they were gone too. My father knew. He was sick, not blind. He said to me once, lying in that hospital bed with the machines beeping softly in the background, all these people respected me only because of my money and my company. The moment the company was gone, everything ended. He didn't say it with anger. That was the worst part. He said it like a man who had already accepted the answer to a question he'd been afraid to ask for years. I sat next to him, and I didn't say much. I just told him I was there, and that I wasn't going anywhere. My mother never cried in front of us. She wasn't cold. She just didn't have time for it. She had a sick husband to nurse back to health and a son she'd raised to never quit. She took my father home from the hospital, fed him, kept his routine steady, and watched him slowly come back to himself. I think about that now, the way she moved through those months. No speech, no breakdown, just work.
My parents hadn't raised me to collapse when things got hard. They'd raised me to survive hardship and come back standing. So that's what I did. One afternoon, my father called me into his room. He looked better. Not all the way, but better. He put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Go, Marcus. Rebuild the company. And if you need money, there's cash hidden in the secret locker. Use it to arrange everything." That was all he said. I went to the company the next morning. I called the people I actually trusted, classmates, people I'd worked with, people I knew would show up when it mattered. No relatives, no old loyalties, just people who were willing to work.
And we worked. 18-hour days, weekends, late nights running on cold coffee and silence. We didn't talk about what had happened. We just rebuilt, system by system, client by client, reputation point by reputation point. 3 months. That's how long it took. 3 months of non-stop grinding, and the company was back. Not limping, not surviving, but actually back. Same standing, same strength. Maybe sharper, because this time every person in that building had earned their seat.
When my father called and told me to arrange a grand event for Sunday, I didn't ask questions. I just did it. I booked the space, I sent the invitations, I prepared everything the way he would have wanted it done. When Sunday came and my parents walked through the door, I watched my father's face. He was dressed sharp, moving carefully, but there was something in his expression I hadn't seen in a long time. He was ready. The relatives came, of course. They always come when things are good again. They clapped, they smiled, they acted like none of it had ever happened, like they'd been there the whole time, like the silence of those months was just some kind of misunderstanding.
My father let them settle in, and then he stood up. The room went quiet. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He just said, clearly and calmly, in front of everyone, remove every single relative from this company immediately. I don't want to see them here anymore. From today onward, I trust honesty more than blood relations. Nobody moved for a second. Then it sank in. The begging started. Explanations, apologies, hands reaching out. But my father had already sat back down and turned to look at me. And in his eyes there was something I can only describe as peace.
He had waited for this. Not out of rage. My father wasn't a rage kind of man. He had waited for the moment when he was strong enough to say it out loud, in front of witnesses, without flinching. It was too late for forgiveness that day. Not because my father was cruel, but because some doors, once they close, don't reopen. That's not bitterness. That's just the truth about trust. I think about what my father said in that hospital room sometimes. They respected me only because of my money. Maybe. But here's what I know. The people who stayed during those 3 months, my mother, my classmates, the handful who showed up without being asked, they didn't respect money. They respected something harder to fake.
The company is still standing, stronger than before. My father is still standing, quieter than before, but steady. And the relatives are gone. That's the end of the story. No dramatic twist, no tearful reunion. Just a man who learned the difference between people who love you and people who love what you have, and finally said it out loud. If a story like this has ever played out in your life, drop it in the comments. We read every one. Subscribe to new stories every week. Until next time.